Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. This is an opportunity for the community to come and discuss CARICOM and the impacts that CARICOM full membership potentially could have on the community. This is an opportunity for you to share your thoughts, because up until this point, that really hasn't been the case. So we wanted to give that real opportunity. What we'll do is we're going to start with MP Dwayne Robinson, who is the shadow that is responsible for this particular topic. He will take you through how we got to this point, and then go through kind of the steps that the opposition has made, what the government has done to this point, and the fact that we believe that the only way for us to make this decision, it should be done through a referendum. So without further ado, Dwayne Robinson.
Good afternoon, all. Thank you so much for coming. So we're just going to go through the slides so that you know a bit about this topic from our point of view, and also so we can get some of your feedback from an engaged point of view. So the CARICOM, what changes, what does it cost, and who decides? Bermuda deserves the facts and the final say. So this is what encompasses our entire ethos when it comes to taking this topic on, is that we want the people to decide via referendum. And so everything that we've done to prepare for this is from that point of view, but we also want to give you some facts as well. Next slide, please. Tonight's purpose: clarify what is being proposed, test the claimed benefits, identify what is still missing, hear public questions. This is not anti-Caribbean, this is pro-Bermudian, this is not anti-cooperation, but pro-evidence. No fear, not fear, and due diligence. So this is not a space in which we want to diminish Caribbean nations or people from CARICOM. We're not here to talk down our cultural ties or to belittle nations within the Caribbean, but we are, we are here to discuss how this benefits Bermuda, and it is a pro-Bermudian conversation, but it does not need to be anti-Caribbean. This is just a timeline of basically how we anticipate this evening to go. So we have the opening, and then issues plus evidence, 5 tests, public comment, which will be all of you lovely people who have come out today, and next steps, which is always something that folks ask about when speaking to the opposition, is what are the next steps? Next slide. The ground rules go back to what we stated earlier. Please be respectful when you give your opinion. We will shut down anything that comes across as derogatory or belittling or diminishing of anything CARICOM or Caribbean. But we do expect honesty and openness. So we expect to have raw emotion, but we can keep it respectful. So respect and criticize decisions, not the people. Time is 2 minutes unless extended. In other words, if somebody is really giving something very crucial to the conversation, then there may be some leeway given to have additional time. Focus is separate facts, values, and politics. In other words, these are 3 distinct conversations. So we understand that cultural ties are very important, but we also have to value the factual side of the conversation of how will this impact Bermudians, what are the benefits for Bermudians and Bermuda, and also the politics of the situation, because all 3 of those play a part, but they are not one entity, but intertwined. Our shared ground. Bermuda's Caribbean ties are real. The policy question is separate. We acknowledge there is no denying that a large percentage of Bermuda has Caribbean roots and heritage within their family. There is no denying that it has played a part in shaping our society as Bermudians, and that we are already very much intertwined within the Caribbean. I mean, you have CARIFesta, the CARICOM games, all manners of different things that we are already tied to the Caribbean with. So we accept that as the OBA. There's no denying it. The policy question is separate. How will this improve education? How will becoming full membership of CARICOM improve healthcare? These are real tangible things, and that's the policy part of it, that the OBA, as the opposition, has a democratic duty to ensure that any decision made by government benefits Bermuda and Bermudians. So family and history, culture and sport, education and health, disaster cooperation. Our heritage is not on trial tonight. Next. Where Bermuda is today. Regional cooperation without full membership obligations. So we are currently an associate member of CARICOM. So we do participate regionally. We do collaborate regionally right now. Observer and consultative participation. We are involved in processes within CARICOM now. So this is not a conversation about whether or not we wish to be affiliated with CARICOM. We are affiliated with CARICOM as an associate member. The conversation is whether we wish to take the future step of becoming a full member of CARICOM. We have lower institutional commitments. No CSME free movement obligations. So right now, we pay less and we have absolutely no obligations for freedom of movement between us and the CARICOM nations. Next slide. What government proposes. Movement from associate membership to full membership. They propose full membership with negotiated terms, being as though the minister has stated that Bermuda will retain control over its independence, that they don't intend to move into freedom of movement. So they will have negotiated terms. It will not be a complete and full carte blanche when it comes to becoming a full member of CARICOM. They've made that clear. However, it is clear that the final decision will be made between CARICOM and the UK. So those negotiated terms cannot truly be stated yet. And with the absence of a white paper, we don't really have all of the facts or figures. We are still an overseas territory, and as such, we will have United Kingdom restraints, or constitutional constraints, as full members of CARICOM. We will be given a letter of entrustment which will detail what we can vote on and what we can participate in as full members of CARICOM. So essentially, even becoming a full member, it doesn't remove the restrictions of the things that are already underneath the UK's remit constitutionally as our connection to them as an overseas territory. And of course, our upcoming white paper, which is said to detail everything that government intends and is meant to answer all of the questions that we have. However, the One Bermuda Alliance doesn't believe that the public should wait for a white paper. Certain things can be answered now. The One Bermuda Alliance position. On the information presently available, associate membership remains the safer and better supported course. The One Bermuda Alliance believes that right now, with all the information that is available and the state of geopolitics, the safest bet for Bermuda right now is to remain an associate member. However, thank you. But if the government wishes to pursue full membership, it must publish the final proposed terms, provide the supporting evidence, and put the decision to the Bermudian people via referendum. the One Bermuda Alliance has pledged to support the outcome of that referendum and the people's will, whichever way it goes. Publish the facts, publish the terms, let Bermuda decide. The referendum position for our party has been consistent. Going back to November 2023, when this was first presented by the government, all the way up to March 2026, in which we have, via numerous colleagues, made it quite clear where we stand as far as a referendum, and that this is something that Bermudians deserve to have a voice on, and we have not wavered from that position. The demand is not new. Proper evidence, proper terms, and the people's authority. Next slide, please. The presentation is built around the questions government must answer. New benefits. What are the economic returns? Immigration control. Constitution and the United States. Mainly visa-free travel, which is a contentious topic for this particular suggestion. And number 5 is the democratic consent. In other words, referendum. What is genuinely new? What can Bermuda obtain only through full membership? What is available now? Available by enhanced associate status, available only by full membership. A benefit is not a full membership benefit merely because it is connected to the Caribbean. The government must identify specific program institutions, barriers removed, and measurable gain. And the reason why this slide is so important is because during the conversations that the members of the opposition have had on the floor of the House, in the media, and even attending some of the town halls of the government, we haven't been able to differentiate any benefit that we do not already have as associate members. The government has not been able to outline to us what tangible benefits will be gained by becoming full members of CARICOM. There have been a lot of intention, a lot of words that have been said, but when we look down at what we already have as associate members and try to match it to what was stated in the green paper, we find little to no difference between those two, except that Bermudians potentially may pay more. Next, please. We asked across government. Specific questions were put across portfolios. The opposition leader gave his shadow cabinet the task of preparing questions that go across all of our portfolios when it comes to CARICOM in order to get more clarity, not only for ourselves, but also for the public. We asked about food prices, what gets cheaper and by how much. We asked about education and youth, which programs become newly available under full membership. We asked about seniors and families, which regional supports will be new. We asked about tourism and culture. What initiatives are inaccessible today? We've seen partnerships with the Caribbean Tourism Association already coming to pass as associate members. So we're asking, what will be new? Crime and security. What new policing or intelligence tools will be made available? And will we be potentially pulled into any regional issues in this space? Business and markets. Which markets and barriers change? A large plank of government's case regarding full membership of CARICOM is that it will open up additional market for Bermudian businesses. However, when we ask them to identify what barriers exist currently for Bermudian businesses to utilize the Caribbean market, we get referred back to the green paper, which does not list specific barriers that will be removed for businesses to operate in CARICOM. Next, please. Repeated answer. So we have here just a snapshot of our parliamentary questions. It has my colleague, Shadow Minister Robin Tucker's name on it. That's short. this is basically letting you, the public, know that most of our questions were redirected back to the green paper or to wait until the white paper is released. Now, the concern that the opposition has with that particular term is that the policy has already been taken to the public and has already begun to be promoted as something that is good for Bermuda. Therefore, we expected that these questions will be able to be answered because of the fact that you told Bermudians that this will benefit them. However, we were told to wait until the white paper is released. That means that the government then responsibly probably shouldn't have started to promote or speak about the benefits until they successfully outlined them in the white paper. Next slide, please. What is the economic return? Costs are not the same as benefits. Membership contribution, in other words, there was a figure that was tossed out. I'm not going to quote it because the minister has since recanted that it will be it was an estimated price paid, but we do not know what the actual amount for full membership of CARICOM will cost until the white paper. However, we know it will be more than associate status. So we know that it will be an additional burden on the Bermudian taxpayer. Staffing and legal compliance. What additional staff and legal compliance will be required moving from associate to full membership? Because things will change. Well, at least so we hope. Otherwise than that, we could have stayed where we were. Institutional participation costs and reputational assessment. This is a big part of what the opposition is concerned about. It is no secret that there are regional tensions in CARICOM between our largest trade partner, America, and the current president. What potential reputational damage will we receive by entering into full membership? And this is not about saying that Bermudians are superior to or better than our Caribbean neighbors. This is not about saying that they have nothing to offer for us. This is about accepting the reality that we are an international financial jurisdiction and our largest partner and closest landmass is America. And this is something that we must take into account. The government has not been able to lay out to the opposition or to the public how they would potentially navigate any particular regional backlash because CARICOM is a block. So once you join the block as a full member, that backlash could potentially be on you. And all the opposition is asking, if you intend to take that step, how will you safeguard Bermuda, its reputation, and its people? Next one. Immigration and control. Government says Bermuda retains control. The issue is that the final decision is not between government and CARICOM. It is between the United Kingdom and CARICOM. Bermuda cannot put forward and negotiate its own membership into CARICOM, or negotiate its own full membership into CARICOM. So we don't actually know what Bermuda retains until that deal is struck. And that is concerning to the opposition. The public needs permanent written protection. Many debates in the House, the One Bermuda Alliance has stated that if you wish to use something specifically for something else, enshrine it in the actual legislation. We've had this debate over and over. We want the protection to be written and enshrined in law and enshrined in the agreement so that Bermudians know exactly what they're getting and exactly what protections are available to them should this step be taken. Question: who can change it later? Now, this is something that obviously is up in the air. The government has stated that we can opt out at any time. We're a little skeptical about that. When you become a full member of an organization, it cannot be as simple as untangling yourself in another week or a few days. but we will stand by to see what the white paper says about this particular piece. The key questions: where is the opt-out written? Does it cover residence, work, and business establishment? Can it be amended later? What dispute resolution mechanism applies? Next slide. What will Bermuda actually be able to do? Speak, vote, abstain, disassociate? Bermuda should not pay for a label. Bermuda should know the practical rights and constraints of the membership actually being negotiated. So right now, you could potentially see Bermuda in a position where it pays for full membership of CARICOM and only has a quarter of the voting rights of its other full members paying a similar cost. And that Bermuda may end up becoming full membership only to be constrained by our pre-existing position as an overseas territory and have to opt out on key things such as defense, foreign affairs, and every other manner of things that most full members will vote on. So essentially, Bermuda taxpayer will be footing an additional cost to potentially just allow a minister to have a larger seat at a table in an association. Next slide, please. Has anyone asked the United States? The issue is not certainty of harm. The issue is absence of demonstrated due diligence. What we have noticed is that within these talks, the relationship between us and the United States of America is not spoken about as much as we would like. It is something that has become integral to us. Our dollar is pegged to theirs, so it is not just a passing topic. This should have been well laid out, well thought out, and it concerns us that it is brushed aside. The opposition leader asked a question: has the Premier had discussions with the United States about becoming full members of CARICOM, and what was their response? No. No, they have not. Independent legal advice, U.S. government consulted, travel privileges assessed, financial reputation reviewed. Bermudians should not be asked to trust us on matters affecting travel, business, education, healthcare, and family life. Next slide, please. Who decides? Consultation asks, what does the people think? White paper will state the final case. Referendum asks for authority. The public cannot approve the final proposal before the final proposal exists. So the One Bermuda Alliance wants to see the white paper and is encouraging everyone to read it and see what the case is, but still ask for a referendum. And the reason why is because a lot of times we are accused of fearmongering or accused of attempting to shape public perception of what the government is doing. So we ask, as a respectful and responsible opposition, let's see what the white paper has to say, review it, look at the facts presented, but we will not waver on the calls for a referendum. Next slide. 3 options for Bermuda are as follows. We can continue on as an associate member. We can negotiate enhanced associate status. The One Bermuda Alliance has already shown our support for pursuing stronger cultural ties to the Caribbean. We accept that there are many Bermudians with a Caribbean heritage and family and ties, and we also accept what they have done for Bermuda in our past, present, and most likely in our future. So we are not opposed to enhanced associate status, which could be anything from cultural exchange to enhanced education opportunities. Or the third option is to pursue full membership terms, which is the current option that the government favors. The right question is not how do we get a different label, It is which option best serves Bermuda now. Next slide. Option 1, associate membership. Existing regional cooperation continues. Bermuda retains current labor market control, lowers institutional costs and commitment, targeted gaps, and can still be addressed separately. This has worked for us so far. It has allowed us to maintain the much needed regional cooperation and closeness with CARICOM, while also being able to opt out of the more detrimental decisions to us. And I think that the concern is once we move into full membership, what will that drawback be and what will we have to give up? Next slide, please. Enhanced associate status. There is no doubt that Bermuda could use some help in some of these particular areas. Education and training, health and seniors, disaster preparedness. We're actually pretty good at that. We actually send folks, so I take that point, but, and financial advocacy. Bermuda can ask for more cooperation without accepting every legal, institutional, or geopolitical consequence of full membership. This option has not been rigorously compared in the government's materials, hence why we have publicly disputed the green paper as being an actual green paper. Because usually a green paper assesses all options available to people, lays them out, and then moves into a white paper, which then becomes the final decision the government has taken. We feel that the green paper that was released highlights one option far more than all the other options, which comes across as a persuasion document for full membership and not an official green paper. Next slide, please. Option 3 is full membership. Broader participation subject to constraints, which works out to probably not be broader participation, but we'd have to see how the final deal is worked out. Additional costs and administration. Permanent carve-outs will be needed. Referendum before binding commitment. A proposal may be negotiated. It should not be assumed. The public must see the actual terms, safeguards, and expected return. Next slide. What we want your views on tonight. Benefits. What do you believe full membership will add? Cost. What cost will be acceptable and for what return? Control. What legal protections must be non-negotiable? Options. Associate, enhanced associate, or full membership. Referendum. Should the final decision go to a public vote? Well, I think we know that one. But still would like to hear your thoughts on it so that we can know for sure. Comments may support, oppose, amend, or expand the OBA position. Specific points are most useful. And the reason why we are stating that openly is because we do not want to dissuade anybody who has an opposing view to us to speak tonight. Our goal is to hear all views, and we do not want anyone to feel that if they are pro full membership, that they cannot speak tonight, and that we will not take what you have to say into consideration. And we also wish to know and state for the record that we do not think we are the smartest people in the room, and we would love for our position to be further expanded tonight by the expertise and views of the public. Next slide. So speak for up to 2 minutes. Submit a written card, which somebody did. Raise a fact, question, or concern. Written submissions count equally with spoken comments. They will be sorted into evidence requests, policy questions, referendum arguments, and further parliamentary questions. So this is our opportunity to get your engagement, to tool us, and to give us the tools to be a more effective opposition on this topic And by being a more effective opposition doesn't always mean oppose, but also means to provide viable alternatives. Next up. What happens next? Review public comments. Yes, we will actually read them. So don't worry. You won't be wasting your time. Identify missing evidence. We're looking for anything we may have missed. We are looking for anything that someone may have observed that we didn't see. Separate policy from politics. We understand that as politicians, a lot of times our lens is through that. But for Bermudians who are looking through different lenses and are living lives and working in jobs and careers, they have a lens that may be different from ours, and we want to tap into that tonight. Then take the public record back into Parliament, public communication, and the demand for a referendum. Next slide. All right. Well, looks like we got to the end of it. Thank you so much, and I guess we'll turn it over to folks for questions.
So thank you to MP Robinson for laying out the position for where we are up until now. And now we'd like to open it up for anyone that has any comments, questions. Obviously, you see we are trying to engage, find out what the population is thinking about where we are, so that we can continue to build the case, whether we should be supportive or not supportive, whether this is a benefit to Bermuda or not a benefit to Bermuda. And the only way we can do that is we have to engage with the population and find out what your views are. So we're opening to questions. Just raise your hand and we'll bring the mic to you.
Yes, good evening, everyone. What I have to say is, I don't know exactly how many million it will cost the country to join CARICOM, but we are short of a whole lot of policemen. And say, for instance, if it's $2 million to join CARICOM, full membership, why can't we just protect ourselves and put 100 more policemen on the air? Put 100 more policemen on the job to protect us better. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to speak a little bit more about the cost of CARICOM. I've got my notes on my phone. I've done quite a bit of research online about the budget, and I couldn't really find much about the budget, but what I did find was that the budget is about 53 million Caribbean dollars, which works out to be about 21 million US dollars a year. I couldn't find what they actually spend the money on, but that's what their budget is. Our last payment as an associate members pay 1% of the budget, and we paid 279,000, in 2025, which means that their annual budget for 2025 would have been $28 million. Your contribution is based on GDP, and of the 15 countries, our GDP is more than 3 times higher than any other country in CARICOM. The second highest country is Bahamas, which has a GDP of 40,000 a year. We're sitting at over 138,000 a year. So with that synopsis, we will be the biggest payers without a doubt, because we are the richest country in CARICOM, and the most any country can pay is 22% of the budget, which means we could expect to pay up to $6 million a year. So I just wanted to add that.
Hi, thank you. If the government continues to reject a call for referendum, will the OBA host a protest march?
If that's what the people want, then that's what we'll do for sure.
Thank you. I'm just going to make a few points. CARICOM full membership is open to any Caribbean state, it says, deemed qualified by the Conference of Heads of Government. Now, to be qualified for full membership, you're meant to be in the Caribbean, and you're also meant to be an independent state. We are not in the Caribbean. The nearest Caribbean country is 900 miles away. The nearest point of America is less than 600 miles away. We are not part of the Caribbean, and putting us in that bracket actually confuses the hell out of people. For example, tourists, when they think of us, they already think of us as being in the Caribbean. Because even with our associate membership, we have put that coat of Caribbeanness around us, which is utterly confusing and, in my opinion, entirely inappropriate. Then you have this business about was in the paper, which I had to bring into this, and that is that Bermuda is not a colony. We were a colony, but we are no longer a colony. From 2002, we became British Overseas Territory citizens, and with that comes the right to a British passport and to live and work in in United Kingdom or Britain. If we go into all of this is, I think, is a prelude to dragging Bermuda into independence. It's a very clever little move, or a big move, to say to put us into that point where, oh no, we can't become members because we're not independent. We got to go independent. That's going to come next. So, in my opinion, Bermuda we should play on our uniqueness in everything we do. We've done that in the past, and I think we're heading in the wrong direction with this, and I'm dead against Bermuda ever becoming a full member of the Caribbean.
Hello, everyone. I just want to make a point that, I've been reading this book about Switzerland and how they have a case for direct democracy. And that has been a very successful country, even though it's landlocked and has many difficulties. They have a petition referendum system, which has proven very, very successful when there's cases that the majority of the public have an opinion on. And my question is to you guys as the OBA, what stance are you going to take, and how are you going to gain the public support and make it evident to the current political party that this is what the public want and that a referendum is the best way to gauge public consensus?
Thank you. So the first issue, I will answer that particular piece because you would have seen on one of the slides, the Premier said in December that they would not have a referendum. So part of beginning tonight is for us to start to build the consensus through the population.
And I have put a petition online that has over 2,000 supporters, around 2,300 at the moment. And clearly the public consensus, even though I haven't pushed it massively online, is that many, many people, whether they are OBA supporters, PLP, believe that this would harm the overall public of Bermuda. So you can find that on change.org. And I think it would be good to push the message.
Thank you.
So obviously, that's my son, but one of the most important things that we all have to think about is the economics of the island and the future of the economy of the island. If we are to, and this of course comes under fear-mongering and all the rest of it, like that the PLP would love to say, but the reality is there's nothing more nervous than money. That's a fact. Look anywhere, the money moves first. So right now we have CIT tax, which is the insurance companies are paying, thank you very much. And of course our government likes to spend the money faster than, water. But the reality is that tax would go away. Every single insurance company that's here could simply move their jurisdiction. They decide they don't want to pay tax here anymore. They can keep their business running here, but they don't have to pay tax here. So they can't take it as a guarantee because no company's profits are guaranteed. And it's sort of like blindfolds. Most people don't even understand that that's a reality. They're not forced to pay the tax here. It's just we could all be in trouble, and I don't want to see that.
Hello. I'd like to know whether there's a risk for Bermuda to lose its privileges on the US visa side that currently exists.
So I'll take that one. I'll come back to everyone else. I think it's important that we have this specific discussion. Just so that people understand, there is the pre-clearance for Bermuda, right? So when you go to the airport, you go through Bermuda, you are already entering the U.S. in our airport. That's one. The second one is the ability for us to have visa-free travel, which obviously is a really important benefit for Bermuda. We are the only country other than Canada that has that. The UK doesn't have it. The reason why that's important is that we really have one pillar of our economy right now, which is international business. That is a very important factor for them. I would also say that as our population, for education, for healthcare, for travel, the list is long for how important that is for Bermudians and has been for Bermudians. It is not something that we can take for granted. So I need everybody to understand that is not something that is controlled by the Bermuda government. It is not controlled by the UK government. That decision comes from the US government only. We have no influence over it. The reason I asked that specific question to Parliament was this. If you are going to publicly say that you are potentially going into this relationship of full membership, did you have the conversation in advance that this could have an impact on those two things for Bermuda? The fact that that conversation had not happened, my words, I find to be irresponsible. It is too important to our economy and it is too important to the people of Bermuda for us to not know the details of that. That is a negotiation that needs to happen quietly. This is not something that we want to rock a boat on because most countries in the world would love to have the opportunity that we have. We cannot take it for granted. So for me, I think this is one of the major priorities in this process. It has to be put right up front, and it is not about scaring people. It's about making sure the population understands that this is a gift, and it can be taken from us. And it's not because we want them to take it from us. It's because it's up to them. And if they feel that the relationship has changed, then they can make that decision. And that is up to the government of the United States, not to us. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. I think it is too important for us not to have a specific conversation on that area alone. Anybody else?
I just add to that and agree that we are very privileged in Bermuda to have a welcome access into the United States. You only have to, well, I've only ever been through Miami Airport once or twice in my life, and I avoid it like the plague. Why do I avoid it like the plague? Well, because if anybody's coming from the Caribbean into the United States, America has a very different view about that population than it does about Bermuda. Why? Well, they're very concerned about the content that can come from there and from South America. We avoid that by being here. And I think that seriously needs to be looked at is how does America view us with the Caribbean Association as opposed to independent Bermuda or separate Bermuda British colony.
What is the CARICOM position on the Privy Council being the ultimate appeals court? Because some of its members do not recognize the Privy Council. What is the position of the CARICOM with regards to Privy Council being the ultimate court of appeal? Because some of its members do not recognize the Privy Council.
Thank you. Her question was about the Privy Council and that some of the members of CARICOM do not recognize it. So this is another one of those questions where when you are making this kind of decision, you need an answer for it. And I know that our Shadow Attorney General is keenly aware of this particular issue, and it is something that we need answers to. We asked 11 sets of parliamentary questions. 11 sets. You saw what the answer was. We got the same answer across the board. These were not questions because we just felt like saying 11 questions, right? Parliamentary questions take a lot of time. We have to go through a process to make sure that they're correct. But really, for us, it was what is actually important to Bermuda, right? Because we've spent a lot of time and energy talking about CARICOM, but we haven't spent the same amount of time and energy talking about what's actually happening here. And if CARICOM was going to solve those problems, we wanted to know. Because if CARICOM was going to help us with our education system so that we were not having the outcomes that we're having, then that's a benefit. The problem is, we already have access to the University of West Indies today. If CARICOM was going to help us with healthcare, we wanted to know the answer to that. The issue is, we already have access. So what we were asking is, we have associate membership. Please tell us what is the benefit that we are gaining. Well, you would think that before you went, at least the step that we've taken so far, those answers would have been available, readily available. Not waiting till white paper. The population of Bermuda deserves to know the answers to these questions. And some of these questions are really complicated, like the Privy Council one. Some of these questions are really delicate, like our relationship with the US, like our relationship with international business, our relationship with the UK. These are really important questions that we have to have answers to, but we're spending a lot of time trying to figure that out while we're not figuring out the problems that are actually happening in Bermuda today.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I want to say that I don't speak for the OBA. They have to be polite. I used to have to be polite. I don't have to be polite anymore. Right. I also stand before you as a person of very strong Caribbean lineage. My father was from the Caribbean. My great-grandmother on my mother's side, my mother was Bermudian. My great-grandmother on my mother's side was from the Caribbean. My wife is from the Caribbean. Their grandparents are from the Caribbean. My children's grandparents are from the Caribbean. So I'm very close to the Caribbean. But we have to look at this thing dispassionately. First thing I want to say is that I understand why the members of the government want to become full members of CARICOM. They haven't said it, but I understand it because it happened to me. I think the second year, when was Hurricane Gonzalo? What year? 2014, because it hit Bermuda while I was in Washington. I went to the Commonwealth Finance Ministers Conference, and when the session started, I was told, because Bermuda was not an independent country, I had to sit behind the UK delegate. And I can tell you, that didn't feel good. That didn't feel good at all, because that guy had no clue what was in the interest of Bermuda. And quite frankly, it was humiliating. And I never went back to any more Commonwealth Finance Ministers conferences. So I know why the ministers of this government want to do this. When they go to CARICOM meetings, they feel humiliated because they can't sit at the table. Haven't you heard this before? We want a seat at the table? That's what this is about. In other words, it's about them. It's not about us. I had to eat crow. I don't see why other people coming after me shouldn't eat crow. All right. The second thing is that the term of full membership of CARICOM is a total misnomer. Bermuda, as an overseas territory of the UK, can never be full members of CARICOM, no matter what the government of Bermuda says, because there will be conditions put on that letter of entrustment that will prevent the Bermudian delegate from saying certain things, from doing certain things, from participating in certain things, that he will be an unequal member of all the rest of the members. So the sort of term full membership is a nonsense. The only way we can have full membership of CARICOM is to be an independent country. Right? So just let that be very, very clear to everybody, that this notion of being full members is a misnomer. Right? It just isn't so. And I know about letters of entrustment. I had to get one to get the airport done. And I had to do some really interesting things to get the UK to sign off on that. Right? So they're not just going to roll over and give us permission to do what we like. They're going to make very specific, particularly in their area, i.e. foreign affairs, right? They're going to have very specific restrictions on the Bermudian delegate. So that Bermudian delegate will not, despite the name, will not be a full member. That's the second thing I want to say. The other thing is that, we live in an interesting and dangerous world where we are in the world today. And I have to tell you, there's an old saying. I went to school in Canada, and a lot of you have Canadian connections. There's an old saying in Canada, and that saying is, "Don't poke the bear." Okay? And in this case, the bear has blonde hair or orange hair. The bear wants to take over Greenland. He wants to take over Cuba. He said, I can have Bermuda anytime I like. What are we doing stuff that's going to poke the bear? The honorable member, the leader of the OBA, said it, that our visa-free privileges are up to the U.S. There is a clause in the United States Immigration Act that exempts Bermuda from visas to get into the state. There'd be visa waivers for Bermuda, for Canada, used to be Bahamas, I think for Ireland as well. But as you say, UK don't even have it. I'm not sure how we got that, but we got that. That can be changed, a stroke of a pen. Now, the other thing is the pre-clearance at the airport. That doesn't require any kind of legislative change. They can just say it ain't there anymore. You know how many people love that? I mean, including to us, in addition to us who love it, the pre-clearance thing. It's a real pleasure and a privilege, and it makes people, it's easier for foreigners to come here and to go back where they came from. Everybody loves it, but it is not certain. It is not guaranteed. It is not a right. We don't have a right to it. It is a favor done to us, given to us by the United States of America, right? The bear. And we're talking about poking the bear? We must be out of our minds. A couple more things before I sit down. There was something in the news that really upset me. I see my friend, Mr. Bain down there. I chewed him out about this morning. Really upset me. And that was Sir Hilary Beckles, a Barbadian who is a professor at the University of West Indies, is in the United Kingdom right now, supposedly advocating for independence for Bermuda. I mean, as we say in Bermuda, he's got some crust. You know what I mean? Well, who gave him the permission to advocate for independence for Bermuda? But this is an example, friends, of what happens when you give away either explicitly or implicitly, you give away the right to speak on your behalf. When you become part of CARICOM, CARICOM will have its say on various matters. Like, they have very strong views on Cuba, for instance, right? The U.S. has very strong views on Cuba. They aren't the same views. So we cannot have people who are not Bermudian, don't have any connection to Bermuda, starting to advocate for us to A, be independent, B, have reparations, all that sort of stuff. If we want reparations or want to support it, okay, we'll decide to do it ourselves and tell the British we want reparations. But we don't want Sir Hilary Beckles from Barbados to tell them that. At the end of the day, the issue with, because of the bear, and ladies and gentlemen, the bear is not hibernating. You know that. You read the news. He is not in the cave. He is not hibernating. Right? With the bear on the rampage, the last thing we want to do is to harm Bermuda's reputation. The risks of this have not been fully explored publicly or otherwise, as far as I can say. Right? But the biggest risk is the reputational risk. A gentleman made a comment a few minutes ago about, money is the most skittish thing on earth. It is. Anytime there's any problems, the first thing to go is money. And, I had a friend of mine ask me, this country produces oil, this country produces cattle, this country produces timber. What do we produce in Bermuda? Right? We produce money. That's what we produce. We produce money, services for money. And that is the most skittish thing in existence. And there's a whole lot of money with Bermuda labels on it. So the reputational risk is great. At this point in time in history, we cannot afford to take chances with our reputation when the bear is on the rampage.
Good evening, everybody. I have two questions, and it's about a referendum. First of all, is there a magic number for a petition that makes a referendum automatic or mandatory? No. Second question is, who writes the wording for a referendum once it's agreed on?
Thank you for the question. So just in case people didn't hear Ben's answer in relation to the first question, there is no magic number that gives you in this room the ability to trigger a referendum. There are two people who can trigger a referendum under Bermuda law. One of them is the Premier and his government and cabinet, and the other is the governor. And so the hope is that the OBA's long-held and very, very strong position is that we will have a referendum. But if we want to get that referendum, it is necessary for the Bermudian people to demand it. And no matter what you may think about associate membership, full membership, something in the middle, or nothing at all, we hope that you will agree with us that anything should be decided by referendum. To your second question, who does the question? The question is drafted by those who are providing the referendum. So sometimes, and you've seen referendums in other places in the world where the question is loaded, obviously we would not tolerate a loaded question. Someone else?
So the CARICOM Treaty itself extends to hundreds of pages. And the Bermuda government says there's going to be carve-outs for movement of labour and a couple other things. But there's hundreds of pages there which are not going to be carved out. And if you read it, that treaty is a sleeping tiger. which has not yet been woken by CARICOM. But if it chooses to do so, that treaty can extend control over so many areas of life and of law in all of its members, because what it's really about is harmonization of law and of culture, and extends, if you look at it, it extends to things like control of ocean resources, corporate governance, employment law, the whole shebang. Almost anything you think of is in there to be controlled by CARICOM. And so the problem that Bermuda has is that it's very much the odd man out in CARICOM becomes full member. It's 1,000 miles north. It's pursued its very kind of unique direction, Bermuda. It's not the same as many of the CARICOM. It doesn't have the same kind of way of being as many of the CARICOM countries. It's got its very unique way of doing things in Bermuda. But harmonization means you then have to bow to what the group decides. So if they say, well, okay, all the members have to impose these particular laws, Bermuda has to go along with it. And it also has what's called, for many things, qualified majority voting. It's not consensus, it's 3/4 majority. So Bermuda could be outvoted every time and say, well, this doesn't suit us, we're quite different to you guys, we're very far away from you, that's not going to suit us. And they say, well, tough luck, we've voted on it, you have to go along with it. And so that's what I see as one of the main dangers of CARICOM. It's things which are not at the moment visible because it's a sleeping tiger, but they could be enacted at any moment that CARICOM decides they want to do this. And unfortunately, Bermuda being so different to the other members means that Bermuda could become vulnerable to being outvoted, and then basically Bermuda being opened up to CARICOM nationals, which, to be honest, includes oligarchs from all over the world who've managed to buy a passport, CARICOM passport. And you can then have a situation where they can use the CARICOM mechanisms, these oligarchs from anywhere in the world, to basically enter Bermuda and rely on these harmonization and non-discrimination provisions to change a lot of things here. So there's a lot to be concerned about that is not yet apparent.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, some of you may remember 20 years ago, I sponsored a movement to try to stop the PLP from forcing us to go independent. That was quite, I had many a fight behind the scenes, and in the end, I created with our colleagues and my wife, Sandy, I had a petition which garnered 53% of the voting population. All they did was sign a document that said, we want to have a referendum on the issue of independence. Because under British law and American law, there is really no strong way that the people can change something that the government has passed along the lines. Mr. Byrd has said he's quite happy to pass this application to CARICOM right in front of our noses because we've elected people who will vote in the House, and that's a done deal. Forget referendums, says Mr. Byrd. Well, I can tell you, having lived off and on in Switzerland for many years and watched direct democracy take place 4 times a year in Geneva, I stayed in Geneva, and it was an interesting project. Very interesting how governments do react to strong petitions which indicate the feeling of the people. Now, in Switzerland, a referendum is binding on government. That's not the case in the UK. It's not the case here. But it's worth a try. Now, if I can just mention something about CARICOM. Scott, are you with us? Scott, have you managed to have a quick look at this? Oh, it's just a plain takeoff online about CARICOM. There's nothing else in it. May I? Okay. Sandy has copies of this 4-page runoff that we took earlier, and you leave it at the back, so everyone should, I hope there's enough of them. I think we did 60, didn't we? But this tells you certain things. You know, when you buy a business, you need to know what the risks are. I've written a letter to the Royal Gazette, and I've said to them, please look at these facts about Trinidad and Tobago's crime rate. This explains it in more detail. Every island is quoted as to their crime rate. It says at the top of this, CARICOM member states face... No, it's just this one.
Okay.
Just this one.
Okay. Could we leave this at the front, and then anybody wants to get a problem?
Sure. Can I just finish it?
I think I'm going to take this back. Sorry, we have other people who are watching online who have been posing questions. I guess the first one is at the top of the screen. I'm not sure it's the first question, but it's Rhonda Trott, who says the OBA is scaremongering the public. Everyone's entitled to their view. We have Alana Masters, who says people to know just what it means to be a part of the CARICOM. So I'm thankful for this meeting. It's not scaremongering. And then she invites Rhonda Trott to explain. I'll move on to the next question. My question is on the topic of the free movement conflict. Even though the government of Bermuda has made it clear that joining full membership would not entail open borders and that it intends to retain full independent control over its domestic immigration and work permit systems, do they really have that option? Now, Peter, I know you wrote an article on the point. I don't know if you want to address it or if I'll hand it over to the opposition leader to answer. Either or. Yeah, here, why don't you... Peter Sanderson is a constitutional lawyer and wrote an article on access from the CARICOM to Bermuda and the current state of the law.
So there's a few aspects. Firstly, there's the free movement of labour itself, which is more about movement of professionals. And the Bermuda government have been quite clear. They say, we don't want Bermuda to sign up to that. Okay, fine. So if CARICOM agrees that they can have that carve out, they can have that carve out. But the thing that I identified that I think they may struggle with is that the CARICOM Treaty has like a fundamental provision that says that the members support the free movement of freedom of movement in general. So a very general kind of piece of language in there. But this is where CARICOM gets a bit messy, is that you then have conference decisions of CARICOM each year, which then clarify what are meant by those kind of general principles. And in 2007, the CARICOM conference heads of government said that what that means, that we support the idea of freedom of movement, is that all CARICOM nationals have the right to visit other member states, just visit as a visitor, for up to 6 months with no visas. At the moment, Bermuda does require visas for a handful of CARICOM states, not all of them, but it requires visas for Haiti, for Jamaica, I think for Dominica, maybe one other. So this, to me, suggests that if Bermuda joined CARICOM, does it mean that Bermuda has to kind of erase its immigration visa policies for CARICOM members? Bermuda now has direct flights, almost, it's getting there, with Bermuda Air, between Bermuda and the Caribbean. So it's not that if that didn't happen, there might be a physical barrier that how does someone physically get to Bermuda? Because if they have to go via the US, they need a visa anyway. But once Bermuda has direct flights with Bermuda Air going between Bermuda and Caribbean nations, you don't have a border anymore. So then there is that possibility. Now, maybe there would be a way for Bermuda to carve out to that general provision, but I'm a bit sceptical. But I guess we'll wait and see.
CARICOM, when I was in Parliament with my partner, Jim Woolwich, if you remember him, he used to go to the Caribbean quite often, and a lot of tourist ministers used to come up to see him. And they always referred to Bermuda as a rich island. I wonder if this membership of 2.8 million to become a member is part of that. We already, talking about business and trade, we already trade with the Caribbean islands. There are businesses in Bermuda right now that import material, women's clothing, food products. One in particular, one called Grace, is very popular. They have fruit juices, orange juices, canned fruit, and anyone who wants to trade with the Caribbean has the option to do that. It's all open borders. My sons who run my business for me do business in the Caribbean. They're now the largest supplier of fishing gear, and now they're connected with a company in China. So Bermudians travel worldwide. I don't see what advantages become a full member of the Caribbean is going to improve what we do right now. And I always said when I was in politics, Bermuda is independent without independence. We've done it for years, 400 odd years, and we still do it. We trade worldwide, and we have a reputation, particularly with the United States, when it comes to trading. And when I first started my business and wanted to get some credit, what have you, and I had no problem whatsoever with having credit. And he was a Jewish guy, and he said to me, I know all about Bermuda and the reputation. You guys pay your bills, so don't worry about it. So we have a reputation dealing with the United States. We are not members of the United States, neither are we in Mexico or Canada. We trade with them openly, have done for years. So have to become a member, full member, we're associate members now, why not leave it as associate member and continue doing business the way we are right now?
A few minutes ago, I think there was a comment or two about a referendum on CARICOM. I think this comment should be directed to Scott. Is that correct? If we have a referendum in Bermuda, pretty much on any topic, be sure it's held separate from a general election.
Yes, good evening. I just really wanted to say how grateful I am that the UK is, that we're associated with the UK, because they afford a lot of benefits to the population here. Children, education, health, safety for those that have to leave, employment opportunities. I mean, I am so grateful for that. Without the UK taking care of us when the pandemic started, I don't know where we'd be if we had to depend on the US. So that it's basically that. I don't think we can, I'm glad that we can't, we're being told tonight that we can't proceed with full membership without the UK's approval. And I'm pretty sure they won't give it. Thank you.
One point I forgot to mention, Bob Richards, when he was speaking, he mentioned about don't poke the bear. I think Bob Richards is our bear.
Yeah, folks, I spent 6 years roaming the Caribbean and visited about 500 islands as a boat captain. And I can tell you on pretty well every island that I went to, I found that there were more people on the island that didn't belong to the island than there were residents. That was a great problem. They couldn't get them to get out of the island. They had no way of securing them or returning them to their own island. They would sleep on the streets, and of course they would create crime. We don't want to see that picture here in this island. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I have a question on process that was brought up this evening, which is for clarity. May I ask the question, who are the two people or two entities, two structures that call a referendum? For clarity. Right. I did hear it correctly. It's the government or the governor. Think about that. Our work is cut out for us. We need the governor's attention. We need a groundswell in this community called Bermuda to protect Bermuda. This meeting is all lovely, but if we don't have the island behind us, we will not have a result. All of us need to gather the people that you know well, hold their hands, and tell them, get up and say something. Because now we are under a very serious threat. And I'm not meaning that lightly. This is a picture of Bermuda. We need the entire island of Bermuda behind us. And may I remind us all that we are culturally mixed. We enjoy cultures that we have intermarried, we have welcomed with open arms, but we are a very small community of people that respect each other. And I'm not saying those down in the Caribbean are not going to respect us or us them. We already do respect them. But we are Bermuda, we are different from them. And we must respect our differences as a community and stand up and protect them. Let's get cracking.
Just a point. Southlands, 5,000 people signed a petition for Southlands. We have 2,000 signatures on this petition. What's wrong with us? We think more of Southlands than we do of Bermuda? Really? Get your children. I see a lot of old folks here. Get your children, your grandchildren, and your grandchildren. Get them to sign.
Good evening. Just to piggyback on what these two gentlemen said, basically, my question is, did the PLP give a definitive time when they want to try to implement this? Because if that's the case, with what you guys are saying, what this gentleman said, and the other gentleman, about having us voting on something that lets them know that we want to get a referendum, we need to make sure we action it quickly, if they're going to do this quickly. Yeah?
Would it not be timely now for the OBA to actually take an ad out to say the pros and cons of this, so that that would be more inclusive of the population?
Thank you. Did everyone hear? So what she was saying is it might be time to put out an ad that lays out the pros and the cons so that the population can start to be engaged with what this is. What we didn't want to do was put that out until we started to get the information from the population. So this engagement that we're having here will make sure that what we're getting is, these are the benefits, these are the things, the risks. And once we know what that information is, the hardest part is that we're in an information vacuum because the government actually hasn't told us anything.
Good evening. I think I got here at the wrong time, but I was surprised when I came to this meeting because I went to two of the public meetings at other places and hardly anybody was there. And a lot of people here seem to object to becoming full members of CARICOM, same as me. But I went to meetings and I was speaking all by myself. And like you're all here talking about a referendum. And the thing is, do you think you're going to win it? Because the thing is, I've been watching the World Cup, and every break, I have to listen to the story of us. And the thing is, one of the things that caught my attention when I read the story of us was it didn't include a lot of the people that's in this room. And but the thing about it is, but a lot of people in this room then come and say, well, you left us out. And I think that's a problem. And the thing is, when there is a problem in the country and there's a public meeting and you got a problem with something, then go to the meeting. Because I'm not a PLP member, I'm not an OBA member, but this is a public meeting, and that's why I'm here. And somebody had a 4-page thing about CARICOM. The story of us had 60 pages. That was real confusing. You want to learn about CARICOM, go to CARICOM.org. You could download this, which tells you all about it. It tells you about how they vote, all the different groups in it. And then if you really want to get a feel of it, go to CARICOM, Caribbean Community YouTube channel and listen to the speech that was made by Kamala Prasad, or whatever, the Prime Minister of Trinidad, whose politics seems to be a little bit different to some of the politics of some of the other islands. It's about 22 minutes long, and that will give you a feel of what, every island doesn't necessarily agree. They talked about sovereignty and things like that, but you can't get a feel of what CARICOM's about if you haven't read about it. And you can't just go by that story of us. That's something trying to sell people to go to CARICOM. Now, I don't like politics. I don't like talking about it, writing about it publicly. I put all sorts of stuff on Facebook. I got a few likes and things like that, but I hardly saw any letters to the editor. I saw one from Bob Richards, and they brought him down, even though in the 1950s, before Federation, his father was, and when all the hotels were segregated, where all the heads of states from the Caribbean stayed? At Bob Richards' home. And the thing is, after he disagreed with something or he said something, they were very disrespectful of him, and I didn't like that. And you have to remember that everybody's got their own opinion, but I'm just wondering where all you lot were. Because at the end of May, everything that was supposed to be your ideas and things were supposed to be committed, and I followed that too. And at the end of May, only 200 and something people made any comments. And it's probably it's probably not that many here. So you're talking about a referendum, but only 200 and something people found fault or made comments about the CARICOM thing. And, that's a bit strange.
This is a question. Given that we are depending heavily on decisions made by the UK government, I take the view that we can be proactive and be ahead of the curve when it comes to this white paper, instead of waiting for the white paper and being reactive. So I take the view that a team from our party should go to the UK and get their position on what's going on. And then, when the white paper comes, we will get information that we haven't been told about, period. So with the support of the party, I was just wondering if you'd be willing to, in essence, support us in that endeavor.
So just quickly, one of our MPs had a comment that he wanted to make.
Thank you for coming out this evening. The story of us, right? Everybody's familiar with what this document looks like. I just want to quote a couple of things out of this document just to address the fact that the OBA is often accused of scaremongering. So if you go to page 11, and this is around the Caribbean single market and the economy. These are the words of this government straight out of this document. Page 11. Bermuda's approach is to begin with targeted engagement in areas where our participation can be immediate and substantive, with a view to broadening that engagement over time as the legal and institutional conditions allow. That tells me they're moving towards the Caribbean single market and economy. They're just starting in one spot. They're looking to move and broaden. Page 12. Bermuda intends to engage with the CSME on a measured phase basis. Now, for 6 years at high school, 5 days a week, I went to English classes. And I understand what that means. That's not OBA language. That's straight out of this document. A document after it was published, the minister then came back and said, the pros are possibilities. The pros outlined in this document are possibilities, not guarantees. So, are we scaremongering? Those words that I read are straight out of this document. And I know how to interpret those. 6 years of English classes, 5 days a week. And Mr. Gibbons there can vouch for that. That's my contribution to tonight.
I just got a written question here. Would the PLP government describe and explain what they mean by quote unquote us? And I think that question will have to be answered by the Progressive Labour Party. But it said, and the second comment is based on the CARICOM Reparation Committee document being promoted in London. Clearly, CARICOM cannot speak for or represent Bermuda. And I think the Honorable E.T. Bob Richards covered that quite well. But I just wanted to read the written questions and statement that we got from the audience.
We'll take a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up. I think we've got plenty of information for us to start this process really rolling.
Hi, it's also on page 11 of the Story of Us, and I'm going to read directly from the fourth column. It says, the free movement of skilled persons, granting specific categories of workers with CARICOM skills certificates, such as university graduates, artists, and media workers, the right to seek employment without a work permit. On page 11.
I just have one question, and it's also about the petition. I was told that the petition was taken down. Is that true? It's still online. So how can we, yeah, okay.
Okay, before I wrap up, I'm just going to have him speak about the petition again. I believe that it's going to mean that we're also going to need to get some paper petitions. We're going to have to get people going, in their neighborhoods. If this is important enough to you, we need the community to get involved. The reason that we, as the One Bermuda Alliance, did not put a petition forward is because we did not want this to be marred as political. It needs to be the community. Same reason why tonight was a town hall and not just for members. We needed the door to be open so that everybody can have an opportunity to speak. And we also wanted it to be live so that everybody could get this information and then start to ask questions. And if we need to do more of these in order for us to get more of the community to understand what it is that's happening, then that is the process that we'll take.
Yeah, the petition is very straightforward. I wanted to be as objective as possible and not push any opinions or thoughts on the people to sign it. Basically, it states as we should get a community consensus when we're doing something of such a scale that's going to affect Bermuda for the indefinite future. You can find it on change.org. We're at around 2,300, as I said. And the idea of this is to get hopefully around 10% of the voting base, which I believe is 45,000, to then present this to the governor, who would be the one to make the final decision, because obviously the PLP wants this, and the governor would be the person who we have the support and a petition that has significant following to take a look at this and then bring it to the UK's presence.
Thank you.
Yes, I just want to comment. For a person that's not computer savvy enough, is it possible that you can do things that can include everybody? Because, it'd be much better for people like me.
Just want to say good evening. With regards to Bob Richardson going along saying this is an ego ploy by the sitting government, moving forward, I just want to say that the pathways to status was a major drawback with regards to moving forward on this island, and a lot of people assimilating into Bermuda. My parents came from away. I was born here, but I wasn't considered Bermudian because of my English parents. We had to leave, and then we finally came back in 1979. Michael Fay, with regards to moving it forward with the pathways to status, I think it's a very important symbiosis with that to go along with what you're trying to get with the populace, but it's so dynamic in its swing, and it's a very emotional thing to a lot of people that live here. And then I'm also thinking about the people that you're going to get from other countries coming here and wanting to maybe abode here and all the rest of it. But we're definitely a special island in Bermuda, and we are open to everybody coming here, but we've got to have certain definitive lines in order to get maybe immigration for people coming here, work permits and all the rest of it. It's so skewed at the moment, and it's a very hazy aspect at the moment. And we just need a definitive line when it comes to the actual moving forward on this. And I just want to commend you for doing this tonight.
Thank you. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming out tonight. This can't be the end. This was an opportunity for us to hear from the community. The turnout tonight and the amount of questions and statements that have come out tell me that we need to continue to do this. In this process, I will speak to something that happened on Friday. So the Premier took a trip to the Azores and gave a statement on Friday about going to the Azores. And in that statement, he talked about the point that over 20% of our population are coming, they are descendants of, or they have connection to the Azores. The reason why that's important is because Dr. Doug DeCudo got up and said, well, why is it that the story of us doesn't talk about 20% of the population? This is part of why people are not speaking up. Once this community brings race in, it shuts down the conversation. We can no longer be that way. I need everybody to understand that when we say Bermuda, it's everybody in Bermuda. It cannot be us versus them. And the only way that we're going to start to break those barriers down is we're going to have to start to have these conversations, even when they get uncomfortable. I have family from the Caribbean. Antigua was where my mom's family is from. There's nothing against having people from your family that come from another place, regardless of where that place is. That's the problem. It should be we, as a community, are working together to make Bermuda better, regardless of where you come from. Where we have reached in Bermuda is that if somebody's willing to pick the shovel up and help you to build, why are you worrying about where they came from? That's an important factor for us to understand when we are making decisions on behalf of the entire community. So the problem with putting out a story that says it's the story of us and you're only speaking for a segment is that the decision impacts everybody, not just the us. And that's where government has to understand you are governing everybody, not just some. And that is including us. This can't be about people who show up to a caucus meeting. It has to be about each and every citizen in our country and what is important to them and how we move forward. Now, we wanted to spend our time and energy talking about the actual subjects that are bothering people in Bermuda. That list is long. Healthcare, education, crime, state of the roads, housing, cost of living, eye-watering price of food in this country. So with that, we took our time. We did not come out and speak against this when it was brought out. You know why? Because we needed to hear what the message is. If there are actual benefits to our community, if this is going to help our community to fix all those things that I just said, we would be an irresponsible opposition if we did not listen and try to work with the government to get to those answers. The problem is, those questions were asked, no answers have come. And now we have transitioned from green paper to propaganda piece. It's everywhere. World Cup, everybody talks about the commercials. Everywhere you go, that is the messaging, without answers to questions. Anybody that was able to see the town halls that happened, those weren't OBA members standing up. Those were everyday Bermudians that got up and said, what is the answer to this question? And there wasn't an answer. And to say that we are going to wait for a white paper, just so that everybody is aware, that's the end of that road. Once you get to the white paper version, that's the government telling you what they are going to do. Too late. Because then that is the part that ends up going to the governor. Then the UK conversation happens. And if the UK conversation is happening without the voice of the people, that is a problem. The only way that we are going to fix this, the voice of the people needs to be heard. I do not want anybody to worry about whether you are OBA, whether you are FDM, whether you are PLP, whether you're independent, whether you don't want to touch politics ever. This impacts you. It will impact the generations that come after you. This is a decision that could change the population forever. And understand what that means. Right now we're an associate member. It means we're kind of in the back, right? Same way you're not at that big table. But guess what happens when you go to the big table? We can opt out of a decision. But when somebody says something unpopular, they're going to paint us with that same brush because now we're at the big table. Now you end up with whatever the big table said, even if you opted out. It is much harder to explain away something than it is for the initial piece to come out. Because that's what happens, right? Nobody reads the follow-up that says, well, Bermuda didn't really join in with this. They see the first headline. CARICOM says X. Listen, for me, the government started talking about the impact that it would have on sports and how we deal with competitions within our region. I go to CARICOM every year. I go to CARICOM every year. We compete at the highest level within the entire Caribbean. What I noticed in this last year was this. Our neighbors to the south are having a really hard time traveling because they're not having access to visas. That's the reality of the people that we are now talking about moving from associate membership to full membership. So for me, I fully understand the impact it can have, just from that one area, which is sport. This is too big of a decision, and it touches too many parts of our population. There isn't a ministry that it doesn't touch. If there are benefits, we will gladly listen to those benefits, but they can't just be an idea. You have to have done your homework. What's the analysis? What's the impact that it's going to have on our community? How is our community going to get better because of? This isn't us saying, oh, well, it has to have a benefit, which is a cost. See, that's the problem. We hear that one all the time. Well, what is it that the UK is giving us? Well, we said vaccines during COVID. There's multiple things that we get from both the US and the UK and Canada and all of our other partners. Bermuda has punched above its weight forever. What I want us to do is say that we're willing to negotiate with the world. We don't need to limit ourselves. And we definitely don't want to put ourselves in a situation where people look at us and say, well, they're just part of that. No, we're Bermuda. And as my father said, Bermuda is another world. Thank you.
Bermuda Live on YouTube. Subscribe now.